All right. Thank you so much. Welcome to another episode of the Sales Story and a Tip podcast. My name is Fred Diamond. Hey, you could watch this podcast on YouTube. You could listen on Apple Podcasts and wherever you get your podcasts. If you're listening on Apple, please give it a 5-star review. If you're watching on YouTube, please give us a thumbs up. I'm excited. We got Jim Padilla here. Jim, give us a brief introduction into who you are.
Hey, Fred. My wife and I, Cindy, we are partners in this company called Gain the Edge, which is an acceleration sales company. We focus on building systems and sales teams for companies that are ready for hockey stick growth. If you're looking for $1 million payday in a short period of time, those are the kind of things that we focus on.
All right, you're doing some great work. So, Jim Padilla, tell us a great sales story.
Well, we specialize the first couple of years in this business model that we've just wrapped our 10th year in. We started doing exclusively events and launches. We actually got started because somebody, a well-known expert, was wanting to do his first $1 million launch and asked if we could support him. I said yes, had no idea what a launch was or any system strategies, any ways to do it. You know, wildly successful launch, $1.6 million, all of a sudden a line was at the door. So we started serving a lot of the who's who in the expert and influencer space on their launches and live events. And as luck would have it, we came across the Ziegler Foundation, and they were getting ready to do a launch. This is post-Zig, God rest his soul. And we came on board with some other very huge players, people that were involved with Kevin Harrington, Mark Tim, and others. And we had this huge partner launch that was planned. And this, you know, there's a lot of, it's very conventional wisdom in when you're doing a product launch to bring in a lot of affiliate partners. And the affiliates, this was the affiliate of affiliates partner launch. People, if you can imagine, with the kind of names that we're talking about, everybody that you can think of who's who in the personal development expert space, they were all part of it. And we were like, wow, we're going to have literally exposure to nearly 5 million people in our audience just from their lists. And we branched down the numbers, and we're expecting, 200,000 people to participate in the launch. We were expecting nearly 20,000 conversations and, close to, 5,000 sales. We had a sales team of 22 people. We were so planned and ramped up for this thing to go. And when this launch went live, we literally had 20,000 people participate, which by most people's standards, that's a quality launch. But when you were expecting when you had expecting 200,000 because of the list, what we started finding out was that all of these experts, they will remain nameless for protection of themselves. They were all, number one, we learned that just because they have a big name and they know what they're doing and they're well known in the industry doesn't mean that they know how to take care of their list. They don't know. That doesn't mean that just because I have 100,000 people on my list doesn't mean I'm going to produce results. It means who are the people on the list and how well do they get served? What kind of relationship am I building with my list? How well am I segmenting them? How well do I know them? And when I ask them to show up for something, do they and will they? And if they show up, will they take action on something? And I was wild-eyed and excited and I just assumed that all of this was going to happen. And so this was a 3-week launch period. And, literally 7 days into the launch, we're down to 7 people on the sales team because we didn't need 22 salespeople. Everything just started to kind of fold and implode. It turned out to be a decent launch. We made, no more than what we have made with people that you had never heard of before. But it was an incredible lesson learning of value on many levels. Number one, we learned that people are gracious. We learned that when people are successful, the most successful people we have worked with, they don't come at you and go, hey, what happened and why did this go wrong? They go, hey, what can we do next time? Right? They've learned. So we've learned to believe the best in other people and be transparent and wise with these folks to be able to say, hey, look, we don't know what to do here. This is not what I was expecting. Here's what I'm thinking about doing. What do you think? Just because somebody hires you as an expert doesn't mean that they expect you to make magic happen. They just expect you to do what you say you can do. And they still want to be part of the process. And it's up to you to be responsible as a sales solution expert of whatever kind that you are, that you know exactly where you begin and end, and you manage expectations continually. And you have to be the one You're the one responsible for creating the environment for the success and the win that you are trying to create. Because at the end of the day, you're the one on the hook for it.
There's so much there in that story to unpack. Thank you so much. I mean, the average person will be thrilled to have 20,000 people in their pipeline, right? And the average,
Yeah.
I think you hit on a good thing too, is that a lot of the people listening, again, they're sales professionals. They have relationships. They want to build referrals. I'm not even talking about at the grandiose levels you were talking about. Even for a couple dozen deals, whatever it might be, and you get the splash on the face where you realize that the other partner who you thought had all these great opportunities and access to audience, et cetera, doesn't quite come through for what you expected. So thanks for sharing that. You gave us a couple of tips along the way, but what is a tip that you want to share with the audience that they should take away from this?
Know your audience. That's your responsibility all the time. It should never be a situation where you are, the project failed because you launched it to the wrong person. It is your job to do your due diligence and make sure that the people you're serving actually have the problem that you solve, and that they're aware, and that they're actually interested in solving it.
Absolutely. All right. Once again, I want to thank Jim Padilla. Jim, what's the best way for people to reach you?
You can go to my personal website, jimp360.com, JIMP360.com. Find me there, all my social medias, all our websites. Shoot me a text and tell you that you heard me here on the podcast with the sales story and a tip.
All right. Once again, I want to thank everybody for listening today. I want to thank Jim Padilla for sharing the story. My name is Fred Diamond, and this is the Sales Story and a Tip podcast.